This is the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. How are you doing? Rob Barrett is my engineer. Happy Hanukkah, Robbie. I hope you get a ton of presents, like one every night for the next 8 nights, right? Merry Christmas to you and happy holidays. Let's get right into the holiday spirit. What do you say, Rob? All right. We got Clay Smith here with us, and he wrote The Tale of Two Bells.
It's about a little boy named Garner who doesn't get anything on Christmas Day, and he ends up being deeply upset as everyone else seems to get something. And then the next day he wakes up and he gets presents. But the whole premise of the story, going back to Christmas Day, there's a bell that rings at the beginning of the day and a bell that rings at the end of the day. And at the end of Christmas Day this one year, the second bell never rings. So Christmas goes on all year for one little boy named Garner. And as the year progresses, he continues to get more and more stuff and realizes that maybe he doesn't need all this stuff. And so he begins to give some of it away and learns his lesson throughout the year that it's better to give than to receive. And at the end of the year, he's learned his lesson, and the second bell rings at the end of the day, and Christmas is over. Garner has learned his lesson that there is much more joy in giving than receiving.
What a sweet story.
I was in college, and I wanted to give my nieces and nephews something, and that's who the book is dedicated to. And when you're in college, you don't have a lot of money. So I wrote this first line one night before I was going to bed, laid back down and thought about the concept for the story the rest of that night. And then about a week later, I got up and just typed it out on my phone, mostly, just because it was such a free-flowing story. It was concepts that would connect with everyone, hopefully, during this time of the year. So I wanted to give them something to remind them what this time of the year is about. And the only thing I've ever really wanted was for people just to read it with their family around Christmas time, because I feel like it is a message that will connect not only with kids but with parents as well.
So how long ago were you in college?
I've been out of school now for 2 years, and I think I wrote it about 3 years ago.
Everybody should do this for Christmas. Give something of yourself.
Like, that's what's so funny about the story. I never expected to make a dime off of this story. I just wanted to give it to my nieces and nephews, and someone read it, and they're like, you need to send this to somebody. So it's completely for others. My whole heart in this is I just want people to read it with their families, because I know that my family and other people have enjoyed it, and I just want people to be able to enjoy it with theirs as well.
Very nice, Clay. Thank you so much. Happy holidays. When we talk about how you never know what may happen in your life that'll lead you down the road to writing your first book, sometimes it's a pleasant experience, sometimes it's not. In the case of Candace Stromberg, MS is a big part of her story, yet there is a silver lining. It's that yoga became a big part of her life, and as a result, she's published her first book. It's called Yoga Monkey Kids Beginner Poses. So, Candace, were you doing yoga when you were diagnosed?
No, it was great because my mother, who's always right, and I still let her know that to this day, when I was diagnosed, said, you know what, go take a yoga class. I read yoga is very good to help you calm, center, relax, and I fought it for a while. I didn't want to go. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I went, and it changed my life. It changed me physically, spiritually, mentally, and it really just opened doors for me that I never believed were possible. I went and got certified to teach kids yoga because I loved it so much, and I loved doing yoga at home with my kids, and I thought, I'm going to go get certified to teach kids because I loved being around, the elementary school kids at the time when my kids were that little. And got certified and started teaching in Fairfax County schools here in Virginia, and just loved it. And that's where Yoga Monkey was kind of born from. I used to call the kids my little monkeys, and just started coming up with the ideas for the characters and the books and the whole company while I was teaching. And then I got sidelined 4 years ago with a nasty right temporal lobe lesion that set off epileptic seizures. So I couldn't teach, and I haven't taught in 4 years, and fell into a horrible depression. Every time I got on my mat, I would cry because I couldn't do what I used to. And that kind of led me to like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write this book on yoga basics, and I'm going to do it with the monkey. And so it's kind of my way of being able to still teach, even though I can't physically do it alongside with them. At least this way I can express myself and my teaching philosophies through the monkey.
So this book has been therapeutic for you. It's kind of kept you going.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the monkey, Yoki, and all the other characters in the book are based on, family and friends and people who have inspired me and helped me get back, to my own yoga practice. I love kids because it's a whole different kind of yoga. It's not about perfect alignment. It's not about breathing perfectly through each pose. It's about expressing themselves and about having fun and, figuring out and learning their body.
How'd you find Paige?
Actually, a friend of ours, a friend of my illustrators, had published her book through Paige, and we were initially talking about self-publishing. And she said, no. I've had this great experience with Paige. They're going to help you, get out in the bigger stores, get more, people on board, people looking, people paying attention. And I've had a wonderful experience with them so far.
Now you're doing all-out marketing. You're going above and beyond when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, my illustrator and I have a book signing coming up at his church. We're going to do one there. And what I do is I bring all my supplies. I bring my yoga mats, I bring my blocks, I bring my straps, throw them out, and we get down and dirty with the kids and teach them a couple poses while we're there. The marketing aspect is very expensive, and this whole company is self-funded, and it's kind of my third child. So we're working on that. We actually have an agent who's shopping it around for a cartoon because I really want to kick Dora's ass. I want to do for yoga and spirituality and altruistic behaviors and nutrition what she did for teaching kids Spanish.
Well, you go kick Dora's ass then, Candace. That's what I say, right? Our next author, J.E. Gilbert, always wanted to write, and much like Candace, a traumatic event propelled her forward. Deception is the name of her book. And J.E., you say once you finally made up your mind to write, it wasn't as difficult as you thought it would be.
I don't have a lot of I've read about a lot of other authors and the way that they prepare to write a book and outline it and everything. And I just kind of sit at a keyboard and capture my thoughts. And sometimes it's for chapters in another book, or sometimes it works well with the book I'm working on.
How many books have you written?
I have my second one written. I haven't got it to the publisher yet, but they're waiting for it. And I actually have my third one started. I've always kept a journal since I was a kid, though, since, I can remember the diary with the lock on it. And so it's always been a part of me. I've used it in different ways. I never really sat down to write a book before, but what happened was I was in a car accident where I got hit by a drunk driver. And when that happened, it changed my life completely. And as a result, I had to separate from my place of employment. That's when I decided to write a book. I thought it would be a good use of my time. Plus, it was killing me that I couldn't work anymore. And I had a lot of things happening with that accident, with a head injury, and I had a traumatic brain injury, and I'm considered disabled now. But you know what? It closed one door, and then it opened the door for me to take the time to write, which I always wanted to do, but I just never had the time to do.
Okay.
The thing about the book is that you'll find pieces of me in there. The focus of the book is not about my life, but some of my experiences are in there. But a lot of it is my fiction, and it takes you on a journey. I like the thought that I can be like a travel agent. I pick you up at one location and I deliver you somewhere else. But in the midst of that travel, you'll find little things that are true about me or my life.
Okay, so what's the book about?
The book's about two girls who graduate college, and they're both in interior design. They decide to open up a design studio in Burlington, Vermont, not far from Church Street. One girl is very adventurous and has always been independent. The other one was really under the thumb of their parents a lot. They wanted her to do something else with her life, so they were very disappointed when she went into interior design. One night, while one of the characters is out, the other character is in the studio, and she gets murdered. And from there, it starts with her death and goes through the people that come in and out of the other person's life and how they uncover what's really going on in this town that's a lot more sinister than it appears. It's learning who people really are and then who is underneath really running some drug business and things you wouldn't expect in a town that seems so quiet and peaceful and geared for tourism.
Okay, so it sounds like you're pretty familiar with Burlington, Vermont.
Only to a certain degree. That's funny that you should say that. I've been there. When I worked for my company, I did a lot of road work, and one of my favorite jobs that I had to do was about 3 or 4 days up in Burlington, Vermont. So I learned some of Burlington, but it never really left me. A lot of it I just researched, and fiction is a lovely thing because you can create whatever you like. So I filled in a lot of the pieces with my imagination.
Are you doing any self-promotion?
Not yet. I've been rehabbing it'll be 5 years this December since the accident. So I've been working very hard to reclaim myself physically and mentally from this accident. So I haven't had a chance to put my energies toward the book. So my answer to you, Alice, is no. But I have hopes for the future. I would love to book sign. I would love to really get out behind the second book, which is takes the characters even a little further and in another direction in the same town. And I look one day to get this really off the ground and join some of the other well-known authors out there and be recognizable. So, and I'm still, finding my way, but I'm in a good place. So, and the book was a good thing because not only was it something I always wanted to do, but it was a good exercise. Having had the brain injury, I did a lot of cognitive work because I may not have always been beautiful as far as shapely or, whatever, but I had a great brain, so I missed it when it was injured with that accident. So writing the book helped with, developing some of my cognitive skills back that I had hurt in that accident.
Writing is healing. And I can't tell you, J.E., how many authors have said the exact same thing. I wish you all the best in your recovery. When I caught up with Ken Baugh, he was catching a bull. I'm not kidding you, Rob. Stop laughing. He wrote Just Passing Time. Ken, are you really chasing a bull?
Yes, ma'am. That's what I'm presently doing. I just got him caught and loaded, so it's been a eventful morning already. Caught one set of cows, sorted off a couple of old cows, and caught one bull to move to a different pasture. Everything starts just before sunup.
So I guess you're a farmer.
Farmer rancher, about an hour south of Kansas City, Kansas. I'm kind of down where the hoot owls are scared to sleep. We don't even get weather reports where I'm at.
Wow. You're like in the middle of nowhere.
Pretty much.
Nice. And a bull got loose.
No, ma'am. I just had to catch one to move to a different pasture. His duties here are done, and he needs to go to another pasture to look for a new girlfriend.
Did he do his job well? That's what I want to know.
As far as I know, ma'am.
Well, you wrote a book called Just Passing Time, and I would think you would know a thing or two about that after what you just told me about where you live.
I don't have any idea at all where this book actually originated or came from. All the time I spend, out and about, saddled up. So I've had a lot of time, alone. And the sad part of that is your mind starts to wander. And I would get little ideas, and most people more than likely would seek professional help to find out why they even had such a thought. Like an idiot, I wrote it down. And the first thing I knew, I had this big notebook full of short stories and poems, political satire, and it's all humor. It's all for fun, entertainment. It's to make people laugh, get away from the dissension and hate and discontent in this world, just to let people have some fun. So I'm tickled to death. If anybody can get any enjoyment out of it, I'm counting the days until we actually sell 10 copies.
10 copies. Well, okay, who are you telling about this book? Do you have friends? Do you have people to talk to where you are?
Well, yeah, I've got a couple of daughters I love dearly that are just computer geniuses. I don't even own a computer. I thought I found a place to plug one in on my horse one day, and he put his tail down. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. Like I say, my daughters have been real good to put it on Facebook.
Why don't you stick with what you know? A good old-fashioned book signing. Is there a local bar? Is there a local library, school?
Yeah, there's a library here in town, and the ladies are just fantastic. And we've got a local newspaper and print shop, and those ladies have been beyond helpful. They've really been good. They've discussed having a book signing, which I look forward to. I used to be an auctioneer for 25 years, and I love talking to people, making people laugh and entertaining them. So I've even been asked by several people about possibly traveling to some other parts of the country to, do a book signing, and I wouldn't mind that so much. I've worked for all kinds of different companies through the years, and I have been known to travel a little bit. I think everybody in the country should have a copy of this book, and it's a book that you can lay on the coffee table. I mean, it's a book that your grandchildren could pick up, and you wouldn't have to be worried about them seeing anything that would be inappropriate. I hope it sells, 1 million copies. Not that I'm looking to, get rich on this thing, because I have no idea what rich would even be like. But, I would like for a number of people to just buy the book and read the book just for fun, to get away from everyday drudgery. That's all it's for.
Can you leave us with a quick joke that's in the book?
A quick joke?
Or a quick
story? Oh, my gosh. Let me think for a minute. Let's see. A boy goes through the checkout line, and he has about 10 tubes of Polygrip. The checkout gal says, "Well, you have such a beautiful smile. I can't imagine you having dentures." And he says, "Well, I don't. This is for my grandfather." She says, "Oh, your grandfather has dentures." And he says, "Oh, no. He has beautiful teeth. He has every tooth that he was born with." And she says, "Well, how come you're buying 10 tubes of Polygrip?" "Well, he loves to ride Harley, and he wears a toupee, and this is the only thing he can use to keep his toupee on."
But Okay, with that, we are going to take a quick break. Coming up, a musician turned hairdresser and martial artist who runs into the mob, and how to bring our government back to the way our founding fathers intended. Coming up right after this very short break. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you: printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
Welcome back to the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Ken Davidge is up in Anchorage, Alaska, where it's 3 below? And he wrote The Second American Revolution, the first 100 days. Ken, I'm curious, are you a historian? Are you looking for a constitutional convention?
My background is management. And the book really looks at how within the government there's a need for substantial change, both in its structure, its constitutional or post-constitutional basis, etc. So this is sort of beyond the Constitutional Convention, although I am a district captain for the Convention of States movement, and I was involved in Alaska being one of the first states to call for a first Convention of States.
What are the chances that we can accomplish something like that?
Well, the purpose of the book is to lay out a very detailed step-by-step process to go from a post-constitutional government to a constitutional government that's consistent with the enumerated powers and the agreements that were made basically between the states in the formation of the federal government.
So are you saying we no longer follow the Constitution?
No, certainly not with respect to the reach of the federal government, which was the issue other than slavery that was most argued in the course of the formation of the federal government.
Where do we start, I guess, is the question.
Well, the thing that's daunting is the extraordinary amount of federal programs. There are thousands of federal programs, most of which most Americans have no knowledge of. And what I've suggested is the formation of a commission, either within the White House or within the federal government, to systematically go through and look at each federal program and determine if it is or is not consistent with the enumerated powers. Now, I do that by starting with 4 outside independent entities, the Congressional Research Service, the General Accounting Office, or General Accountability Offices, the Heritage Foundation, and also Hillsdale College. And each of those 4 would be charged with reviewing every federal program and making a recommendation whether it is within or without or outside of the enumerated powers. And then the commission would begin a process of looking at those 4 reports and starting by agency, a review of those programs that are outside and recommending that they be conveyed to the states with as much as a 5-year grant for the transition. So we would move programs that the federal government has assumed without constitutional authority back to states and help fund that transition. States don't want it. They don't have to take it. Some states will say, thanks for the program. We don't want the federal money, because obviously with the federal money comes some strings.
I'm just wondering, as you're talking, a lot of these federal programs are the result of deals made in Congress. I'll support your program if you support this bill, and I'll support this program if you support that bill, and the pork, and adding on, and, people, things come up for a vote. For instance, I think it was Zika. And it was like, Congress can't even pass a Zika bill. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, all right, I got to do a story on it. Oh, okay. Well, attached to the amendment was defund Planned Parenthood and a bunch of all this other stuff. Well, whether you agree with it or not, all this other stuff was attached to it. So you wonder, how the heck did we get there from here? You know what I mean?
A lot of the programs that the federal government has, they have because the federal or state and local governments have refused to take on their own responsibilities. So they push these things up rather than deal with them directly. Many of these programs are clearly state responsibility, but they didn't want to deal with the issues, so they pushed it up to the federal government, and the federal government is always happy to assume power. Apparently, I'm the first person that's really pointed this out, and over the course of 200 and some odd years, state and local government has refused to do its job, and therefore Congress has stepped in. Probably the most easy to understand is the environmental issues. Almost all the environmental issues, and I'm an expert in water globally, are really local responsibilities. Even air pollution is quite a regional responsibility, and those can all be dealt with by states or agreements between states. But because the states didn't want to take on those responsibilities, they pushed it up and pushed it up and pushed it up, and so Nixon created and Congress created the Environmental Protection Agency.
I guess that the point is this is a starting point.
Exactly. The reason I wrote the book because during the 2012 Republican convention, I was on the platform committee representing the state of Alaska, and it became clear to me as somebody who reads platforms and pays attention to them that it was just a waste of time, because it was a process that created an entity or a book or a statement that politicals just basically don't pay attention to or don't care about. And it's a tutorial for people both elected and appointed in trying to figure out what are the problems, what are the barriers, and certainly the Trump administration, by the way, Mr. Trump was the first one to receive a book at his request. And what did they have to do over the next 100 days that's why it talks about the first 100 days, to really transform America back into something that looks a little bit more similar to what the original construct was.
Very impressive, Ken. The president-elect asks for a copy of your book. Not many authors can say that. What do you get when a musician turned hairdresser and martial artist runs head into the mob? You get Alan Del Monte's story called Dance of the Masters. Alan, give me details.
I've studied martial arts my whole life and studied Chinese history. But when I lived in New York City as a musician, all the clubs and everything was run by the mafia. So I rubbed elbows with some of the most famous people in the mafia. And when they wanted something done, you did it. And when they wanted someplace played, you played there. And I wrote this story about someone I wish that I maybe would have been.
So you had all of this rich experience to draw on.
Yes. Also in the city, I got to meet many Chinese practitioners of martial arts, and I invented this island in the South China Sea. A lot of the story could take place.
So tell us the story.
Well, it's about a young man who was an ex-Catholic priest, and his family being from Brooklyn, he went back to Brooklyn, and he lived with this elderly woman, and she became like a mother figure to him. He worked on Wall Street and never really found anything that really, gave him any purpose in life. And one morning, driving his little sports car across the Brooklyn Bridge and into Chinatown, he accidentally takes a wrong turn, and that changes his whole life. And speeding around a corner, there's this very large, Italian man with a gun standing in front of him, and he hits the man. And when the man falls down on his car, his gun goes off and shoots his partner, and he falls into a Chinese restaurant and smashes the window. And these two men were being sent by a mafioso to kill this Chinese kingpin, and was in partnership with an Italian, also a big mafia guy, and they had this great organization. But the nephew of the Italian mafia man was jealous. And so when Michael did this and he banged his head against his steering wheel, he hit his head again and became unconscious. And so they took him to an island in the South China Sea because they didn't really know if he actually tried to kill these guys or it was an accident. The young man finds out he can never go back to New York again because people are trying to find him and kill him. So he stays on this island for 10 years and becomes this great martial artist. But eventually he has to come back to New York. And when he comes back to New York, he faces these people and kills them. That leads to the second book, which is written but is not out yet, and that's called Avenging Angel.
You sound like you're on fire. You really do.
Years ago, when I lived in the city, I would start a book, and I would go like a couple pages, and that would be it. And then one day I just said, you know what, I really want to write. And I wrote for 2 years. And then I was told that the book is too long. So I cut back on it, and it came down to this. And I love this book. It's my first love. It's the first thing I ever wrote, and I put my whole heart and soul into it. But at the time I tried to get it published, I was being told by every agent that, no, they're not taking new fiction. So accidentally, I saw Page, and I called them. And then 2 days later, they called me and said, we want your book. So I was like over the moon at that point, And so that's where we are now.
I'd say that's a pretty good place to be, Alan. And now, look, you're on to book 2 already. I predict a lot of writing in the new year for Alan and all of our Page Publishing Book Club fans. I think that's a wrap, Robbie. A wrap for the year. See you 2016. Do you realize our next show will be on the first day of the new year? I can't wait. I can't wait. Rob can't wait. Thank you so much for tuning in or downloading. And we wish you a very merry whatever you're celebrating. See you next week. Same time, same place. 710 WOR.